So let's talk about the mini set, or excuse me, the class sets. Now, they came out yesterday, so it's been about 36 hours or so. And so far the reaction has been underwhelming. People have not really resonated with the cards, or they've wanted to resonate the cards. They're very excited about them, but they just haven't hit. Now, it's only been a day and a half, so it's hard to really tell for sure, but it does seem like Mage is a little underwhelming. It does seem like the Druid isn't quite there, but I've also seen some people have some success with it, like Warshak played a lot with those cards and have done pretty well. But I'm not necessarily here to talk today about the minis. It's going to take a while to get used to that. The class sets. I'm not here to just talk about whether or not they succeeded or failed, because I don't think that's really. I think that we're the problem, and not really, but kind of. So it's hard to make cards, right? And it's hard to take 11 classes and keep them balanced enough where your favorite class is still good or good enough for a while and not too bad and still always playable, whether it's a top one or not a top one or whatever like that. We just came off a year that was we struggled, right? They were they never said this out loud, but they were bringing the power level down so that way this year they could start with the Cataclysm. And there's been all kinds of news. We just came off the twist news. We're not going to go back to that right now. Although I do plan on talking about that pretty soon again on Bread and Butter. We're going to have a pretty cool episode there. So we'll look forward to that. But they've had a lot of bad news. They just had the bad news of Twist being canceled last week or a couple weeks ago. And when they put stuff out, believe it or not, they want things to go well. Like you may sit there and look at the cards they've given us or whatever and been like, well, how do they think this was going to go? Like, did they do this on purpose? No, they want things to go well. There is excitement on the team, and whether or not the final product they put out is exactly what they were trying to put out, or if it was tweaked by final design, or who knows, right? We do not know the process. We are not there. But I still think we're part of the problem, and I don't think we realize it. So Cataclysm launched, and I think it was fairly successful. Like, we're playing all kinds of new things. Imbued Druid was a bit of a problem, but we are playing mostly the new decks. There's a couple decks like Dragon Warrior that kind of lingered, but for the most part, everything's been new for Cataclysm. We're not dying to turn 8 Ziliacs, restoring all their health and whatnot. So I think things are in a pretty good place as far as the meta. We've only had two balanced patches, and they were minimal. Like, one took the druid and brought it into line with everything else, and then this most recent one had not two nerfs that I really don't think made that much of a difference. I mean, it does seem to affect the play rate, but overall, I'm not sure what the numbers are. I haven't looked into them, but um, so what I'm trying to say here is this: they released it and it was underpowered, right? So these mini set cards seem to be fairly underpowered. Okay, and we're not happy with that. But when they release these sets and they're overpowered, we get upset too. Like, oh, if they release something and it's just too powerful, then we're like, hey, how are we supposed to play against this? And then it's only like the two decks that matter at that point, and then we get upset too. So we're expecting them to nail it on the first try. And that is extremely impossible to do. You say, well, don't they test these things? Of course they test these things. But they're a small team. And when you have a small team, you can only test so much. You have ideas, you can try things. You can, hey, this is what we decided to make. This is kind of the deck we're expecting to go in. These are the decks you're going to face. These are all the cards that are available to you. But there's only so much you can test in a day, and whatnot. So, it's within 5 minutes of the set going live or new cards going live, you've probably got 100,000 more games than you ever had in playtesting. And we have a lot of smart people that play Hearthstone. So they're going to figure out these changes, and they're going to figure these changes. They're going to figure out like where things broken, how to take advantage of things that maybe the team didn't notice and stuff like that. So we don't want them to come out underpowered. We don't want them to come out overpowered. We want them to come out just right. And that is kind of impossible. Maybe it would have been okay in our early set, early when we don't have all these cards, but even then it was really hard. And now we have 11 classes and we have expectations. Some classes have different archetypes. Do you want to see a control priest, or do you want to see an aggressive priest? Do you want to see face hunter? Do you want to see beast hunter? So it's not even just 11 classes, but it's 11 classes that have different play styles to play depending on one set to four sets to six sets, right? So there's synergy there that is, and all I'm saying is that we have to have a little patience, but they also need to do some stuff, right? So let's assume that they're very rarely going to nail it out the park, right? Like they nailed StarCraft, right? It was a great release. It had to be good because it was a maxi set, not a mini set. There was a lot more cards, and it was super fun, and everyone was excited to play it. And it came out of the box great, but then we had a whole year of, starships and whatnot that just kind of always seemed to be made the game either fun or not fun for people, and and that's okay. But I think that we need to have a better expectation of how they release things and where we expect the power level to be. Now, I think most of us would prefer the things to be fun and more powerful, right? So I would rather see all four of these class sets, Paladin, Druid, Hunter, Mage, come out, and maybe they're the best things to do. Maybe they need to have a plan of overpowered release, even if they know, hey, this card's going to be a problem, or this card is going to be a problem, or this archetype might be a little too strong into like they have data. I'm sure they know these things or have an idea of these things. So maybe they should have the plan of releasing these things overpowered, but ready to a week later put out a new patch. They have a patch cadence that they're trying to do, and they're trying not to change things up too much. They want to have a place where the meta doesn't have too many statistical outliers where there's two things, right? And we all know this. There are statistical outliers when there's like 20-25% of the meta playing one deck and is really good. And then there's the feels good outliers where it's like, well, whether a deck is good or not, if it really feels bad to play against, like Ticketus or whatnot, then you can see what happens. So it's trying to find a balance between fun decks, and it's also trying to find a balance of power, and none of that is easy. But we are consumers and we expect, a good product. And it's okay to say you don't like things, and it's okay to say that you wish things were different, and it's okay to vote with your wallet. That is the way they will definitely know if like we decide to not buy things, then that kind of shows them that hey, maybe this wasn't the right idea, but it's also why things don't necessarily continue. I'm sure Twist didn't make a lot of money and there was a lot of failure on their end, but it was also we voted with our wallets and said, yeah, we don't really feel like that this set. I'm sure they didn't sell a ton of what they needed to, but then you look at the Darkmoon Fair and we're all very vocal and we're like, hey, this is stupid. Why are we spending time on this? And I guess in China these things make millions of dollars. So it's voting with your wallet definitely makes a difference whether you like something or not. And give things a chance. That's all I say because things are hard. Making cards is hard. I would love to do it, don't get me wrong. And I always have ideas. We all have ideas, right? But it's definitely something very difficult to do. Now, hopefully what they do is they take our feedback, which we provide like adults, and we don't swear at the devs and we don't say nasty things. You can That's the problem right there that I have with our reactions is it's okay to be like, "Hey, this didn't hit. I don't like this. This is bad. I don't want this." But when we start getting like personal with the devs and when we start saying things like, "Hey, what stupid person did this?" or whatever like that, it's not really conducive to anything good. So, um, just try to have a, whether or not things hit, which, we're going to have probably more misses than hits initially, just try to remember that they will fix it ideally, and they will, if you don't think Mage isn't going to get some buffs in the next balance patch, you're probably wrong. I would be willing to bet something that we are going to have more buffs to Mage, and probably all four mini sets will probably get some kind of buff. Excuse me, all four class sets will get some kind of buff if they need it. And it's only been a day. Maybe there's plenty of things that can happen. Maybe there's a mage shell out there that we'll figure out in a couple days. Maybe it's just the fact that certain decks are too strong and they'll get nerfed. And we don't want to have this culture. Well, I don't want to. I'm not going to speak for you. I don't want to have this culture of needing to nerf anything fun. I'd rather see things buffed. I'd rather see things adjusted. But there are decks I hate. Like, I hate playing against Control Priest, and I think that a lot of us feel that way, but there are people that love Control Priest. I don't wanna see Control Priest as much as I would love to see it deleted, I don't wanna see it deleted. I want to see sometimes if there's a bad play pattern, I would love to see it adjusted, so it comes in line, but it's like you do not when we have these cycles of, "Hey, these are the 5 best decks. Let's nerf these 5 decks." And then it's like, "Hey, that deck that was good from, like, 4 expansions ago is good again. Yay." There has to be a better way at times, and I think that looking at what the meta is and looking at statistics and saying, "Okay, hey, this is where things are, and this is what we want to see, and these are the improvements we wanna make," and, there has to be ways to do it without just nerfing cards into oblivion, and I feel like that over the last couple years, we've done that a little bit, and some balance patches are better than others. This most recent patch, I've been pretty vocal. I thought did nothing, but again, at the same point, well, I didn't think it did nothing. I didn't really think anything needed to be done as far as that. Like there are a couple cards that needed to be brought in line. Those two cards were on the list. There's probably a couple others, but as long as the meta is fairly diverse and people are playing, there's going to be better decks than others. I think personally, I always thought I want a balanced meta. I want this meta that, everything is like, every class has a deck that's viable. There's no real clear archetype winners and whatnot. But that gets boring, and you want to do fun things. You want to do powerful things. If you can't really get an advantage by playing certain decks, then it is a slog to get the legend. It is a slog to climb because everything's 50-50. You think, well, maybe that brings a skill-based kinda thing to it, but there's only so much skill. Skill will get you percentage points, sure, but, deck advantages definitely help and all that, and I think it's more fun to play a game that you can win often with when you know what you're doing and when you figure things out and you get the right meta and you understand what's going on. You're like, "Well, we're seeing a bunch of these cards and these decks, so I'll tech for this or I'll bring this kind of deck or whatnot." I think that's where the fun is. And whenever we've gotten to the place where the meta has been like quote unquote balanced, it's been boring. A lot of people just kind of like, well, eh. So it's fine. Like, and I'm not calling for anything here. Let me be clear about that. I'm not saying Team 5 needs to do X, needs to do Y, whatever. I don't have a clear answer to give anybody as far as that. My thing right now is just to remember that what they do is hard, releasing cards is hard, adding more cards to things that already exist, and finding the balance between making something good enough to want to play and not so good that it dominates and ruins the game for everybody else, and not so bad where they make no impact. It's a very, very difficult target to hit. And we just have to have a little patience. Like, I always try to, part of my job as quote unquote job, obviously, I don't really get paid for this, but we're working on that. But part of my job is to talk about these things. So I have opinions. I'm going to voice my opinions. And I try to do it in a way where I am not blaming anything on anybody. I just say, well, I'm not happy with this. These are the things why. And I also know in general that when things aren't good, they will try to fix them. And I am confident that we will get a balance patch that will feel okay. Usually, like the meta was good going into the class sets, and now the meta really hasn't changed because of the class sets. So, and I have to be honest, I haven't played any of the new cards yet because last night I wanted to get to legend before I played with the new cards, and I hit the final boss a couple times, and I just couldn't get over the hump, and now I'm probably back down to D2. I think maybe even D3 because I played a little bit longer than I should have. I was tired, but I wanted to try to finish it off, and I didn't. But like I never hit that, so I didn't play with the new cards. But at the same point, I didn't see many new cards. I saw maybe two hunters and I think a leyline mage, but I don't think they ever got to their leyline cards. I don't recall seeing any druid cards. Maybe one, and I think I saw one paladin, one dude paladin, and we rolled them. So it's just remember that they will fix it. And usually the pattern is we find a good meta, which we were in. The mini set, now class set, comes in and shakes things up. And then maybe we get another balance patch or two to carry us over until the next expansion release. I don't know if the next expansion release announcement is on the 28th because they have an announcement of an announcement of announcement. So that might be just saying, hey, get ready for, I think it's Van Cleef, something about Vanessa Van Cleef or something like that. So I would assume we're getting Rogue class set during that, if that's, if I'm remembering correctly. But just, you know, there are other modes to play there. If you're not having fun in standard, it's okay to take a break from standard if you're not having fun in standard. But I honestly don't think there's a problem. I think the class, the meta is fine. It's just the new cards haven't come in and made a huge impact yet. So they will. We usually how many times have we said this card, this mini set did nothing, and then they buff like one or two cards, and all of a sudden shaman becomes a thing or whatever. So just have patience. And when you get out there on the social medias, if that is your thing, and if you're on Twitter, if you're in the discords, just try to remember that if they aim too high, we're going to be upset. If they aim too low, we're going to be upset. And if they aim right in the middle, do things change? Probably not. I mean, it's a hard thing to do, and getting the data from us playing with the things in that first week or two makes a difference, or not playing with those things makes a difference. So be critical of your opinions, like be honest. And I'm not saying don't like say anything, but you can do it in nice ways. And there are creators out there that there are smart creators out there that I think have lots of very good points and very um, articulate ways to say things at times, and then they say things in such a crass and rude way to the developers and whatnot that I, I feel bad for the people that have to work with the creators that are like that, because it's like they are kind of, there are analogies here that I'm not going to use, but you got to remember that everybody out there, there is not one person. Well, okay, I don't know the team personally. I know some people on the team. But there are probably not many people on the development team, and that includes QA, that includes marketing, well, I don't know about marketing. That includes QA, that includes developers, that includes community team, that includes whoever. They all love this game, and they all want this game to be good. They are trying to put out the best game they can within the confines that Microsoft Blizzard allows them to work with the small teams they have. I think a lot of people, I've talked to people in the chat. I think people think Hearthstone is a much bigger team than it is, because it is not. It is a very small team compared to what our involvement in it. It's you would think that this team would be a couple hundred people, and as far as I know, it's much less than that. So just remember these things and give your feedback. And they keep saying, like, we just had the Twist announcement that they were canceling it. And they're like, oh, we promise this time we're going to learn from, our lack of communication, but we didn't learn that lesson the last 20 times we had this communication, all that. There are some avenues that aren't going to hear us, but I can assure you that the developers do. Like they hear us. And it's sad because of the way we've treated them in the past. Not we, but a lot of people have interacted with them in the past. Is that you know they don't Cora doesn't talk on social media anymore, really. Like Celestalon, not a lot, very much anymore. Like the developers that used to talk a lot and used to really be involved don't anymore. And it's because it's like they can't even post something that's like, hey, it's my dog's birthday. And someone's like, when you going to fix my age? What are you, stupid? And it's just like, come on, like we can be better than that. And I get it's the internet and that we aren't better than that. But if you are listening to a show like this, like if you're one of the dozens of people that are listening to the show, like I just hope you think about how you interact with the game on social media, um, and try to be kind. Even if you're unhappy, you can be unhappy and kind at the same time. Just remember how would you feel if your job, and I don't know what you do, you could, be unemployed, which sucks, and I hope you find a job soon. You could work in retail, which is always horrible. You could be a software developer like I am. You could, whatever, it doesn't really matter. You want to do your job, and you want, like, if you did your job to the best of your ability, and you did your best ability, and maybe there were constraints that made it hard to deliver what you needed to deliver or whatnot, and then the customer or your boss just kind of like crapped all over you like all the time, even though you love what you do and you're trying to do things. Just try to think about that. Try to put yourself in their shoes in a context that you recognize. And again, I know I keep repeating myself, but I'm actually doing this without any kind of notes today. Um, be critical. Like look at Kibler. Kibler can be very critical, but he does it in a nice way. These are the things that I'm unhappy about. He never calls anybody stupid. He never says, or anything like that. He never uses. He says these are the problems I'm having, and he's write videos and does videos and whatnot, and says I'm not happy with this. I'm going to step away. He votes, maybe not with money, but he votes with like, hey, I'm going to play another game now, which means that my hundreds of followers or my thousands of followers are going to not watch me play Hearthstone. They're going to watch me play TFT, or they're going to watch me play whatever he plays. And that is not voting with your wallet, but voting with your influence. There are ways to say, I am unhappy, but do it in a way that, is more positive. And that's all I'm saying. So it's kind of our fault because we are never happy when they release something. Never, never. And I was actually kind of surprised at how little complaints there were on Cataclysm because we were so starved for something positive. I think everyone was just excited, and it hit. Like Cataclysm hit very well, except for Imbue Druid, and they had to adjust that, and they probably took a little too long to adjust that. But at the same time, I like that they're not snap. Conflicty, right? I like that we're not getting a balance patch in like 4 days because it's like we haven't had a chance to settle the meta. But at the same time, it was like, well, it's like 2 weeks before we got a change to the Immune Druid and was everywhere. And it's hard to find that balance. So I mean, I'm there with you. It's just like I want to see like things change and happen, but I want to see them. I want the Hearthstone to have more wins. I love this game. I literally have two podcasts about this game. I play it in my free time. I am trying to build YouTube content on this. My second job, quote unquote job, uh, internship because you don't get paid for internships, right? My second job internship is Hearthstone, and it's like I come home from work, and right now I look and I say, well, what can I do to improve what I'm doing? What can I do to promote this game in a way that's going to help me, that helps them, and all that? Because that's what it is. So just try to think about how things are. And if there are things that you want to see improved upon, talk about it on Reddit, talk about it on Twitter, talk about it in Discords. But put it out there, be like, hey, Mage didn't hit. The ley lines seem like they're going to be fun, like, but they're not there. And they're going to see the statistics anyway, and they want they don't wanna put out something that no one plays. They don't wanna put all that work in and be like, "Hey, we made this really cool." Whoever made the mage set really wanted to be cool and was probably there are levels of design, right? There's the initial design, there's the like the concept, and then there's like the initial cars, and then there's playtesting, and then there's the final design. And I'm sure many of the people, the initial design engineers that have the ideas and whatnot, come up with these great things, and then they get through the process and they get watered down as they go through because whatever. And the other thing to remember too is that when they design these things, they do it months ahead of time. So when they developed these cards, for example, they didn't know what the meta was going to look like. I mean, they have a rough idea that hey, Cataclysm is going to be out. We're doing this for Cataclysm, so we expect to see. You know, I keep thinking Imbue or not Imbue, Invoke, but it's Herald, right? We're gonna have Ragnaros, we're gonna have Alakir, we're gonna have all these. How, but they don't know that hey, Imbue Druid's still gonna be a thing, or Dragon Warrior. Like they also don't know what's gonna be changed and nerfed from other sets between now and then. So maybe even the initial design of a card or a series of cards is awesome, and like they can't stop winning when they're playing with it, and like, oh, maybe this is going to be too strong. And that might have been true if the cards had still existed that way when they built them. But then they get changed, and then we have nerfs and we have buffs and we have, you know, design changes in other sets that have come out and whatnot. So it's a very, very complicated process with many moving parts. And I'm not saying that they can improve things because, of course, they can. But just again, be kind. That's all. That's all. That's just remember that. Be kind and try to be positive, but be vocal, be honest. Just do it nicely. It's the internet is so crappy with the whole binary thing. Like right now, it's like, hey, it's either. And I'm not getting into politics or anything, but it's just like, hey, it's just like, you know, you either there's either a solution or there's no solution, or there's no nuance, there's no investigation into complex situation to be like, hey, this thing won't solve this thing. No, it won't, but maybe it'll make it 20% better. So if it won't solve it and it makes 20% better, that's 80% less. That's 80% that we now have to focus on instead of 20%. And we can't have these conversations anymore. One of my favorite memes is like, when the person says, I don't like pancakes or I like pancakes. Right. It was like I like pancakes, and like, what do you got against waffles? It's like, what did I say about waffles? It doesn't have to be like that. So get out there, be vocal, just be kind.